The ACU football team steps out of conference for a homecoming game at Shotwell. I'm Sharon Morosky.
And I'm Grant Boone. We'll tell you if Ave Maria University has a prayer today against the Wildcats. It's the Ken Collums Show right now. Welcome to Week 7 of the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings from the JMC Network studios on the campus of Abilene Christian University. I'm Grant Boone, joined by ACU junior Sharon Morosky and the head coach of the ACU football Wildcats, Ken Collums. Homecoming week here on the Hill, and we'll talk about that game with Ave Maria coming up in just a little bit. But, Coach, 3-3 after that tough loss to Lamar on Saturday night at Shotwell, and if there's anything it seems like we're learning in this first year in the Southland Conference, maybe we knew it before, but we're being reminded that razor-thin line between winning and losing. What was on that line? What was the difference Saturday night?
Well, the difference Saturday night was simply our inability to run the ball late in the game and to close the thing out. You know, we're up by 11. Your offense has to take care of the clock a little bit better. And, you know, we scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter, but you need to be able to control the ball a little bit more. And then defensively, we gave up a couple of big plays. And those two things are a recipe for disaster in any quarter, in any game. And, you know, the fact that they happened at the end is disappointing. But there is a fine line. We've lost 3 games by a total of 10 points. And, you know, we'll get those wins. And we very could have well won that game, you know, Saturday night. But, you know, it's not played like that. And you don't do interviews like, well, we could have and should have. Its fact is they made more plays than us at the end, and you got to tip your hat to them. Yeah.
Looking at tonight's game, homecoming is a lot of fun for the fans, but how do you plan on keeping your team focused?
Well, it's after a loss, it tends to hone you in a little bit more. And after one that stings like that, where you should have closed the game out, you know, we didn't have issues practicing all week, and you know, as coaches, you get out there and rattle the cage a little bit, make practice a little bit fun, and just change things up. But that's all part of a long season. We've got a 12-game season here. This is simply game number 7, and we should go out and do fine. I have no reason to believe that we won't go out and play well for 4 quarters. That's the issue. Is we'll play well, but sometimes we don't play well for 4 quarters. We'll play well for 3.5. We've got to learn to finish games, though.
All right, we will talk about that game against Ave Maria today at 2 o'clock, a little bit later on in the show. But when we come back, a look back with highlights and analysis of that narrow loss to Lamar last Saturday night. Glad you're with us here on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Back here on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. ACU and Lamar down to the wire last Saturday night and Shotwell. With a look at the highlights, here's Daniel Zepeda.
Number 8, Kate brought down by number 30, Winbaker.
The Wildcats took on conference opponent Lamar last Saturday night in a game that would come down to the wire. On ACU's second drive of the game, quarterback Parker McKenzie finds receiver Cedric Gilbert down the sideline for a 38-yard touchdown to give the Wildcats an early lead. Lamar would answer back as this run by Cad Harrington is enough to tie things up at 7 late in the first quarter. After the Cardinals would kick a field goal to go up 10-7, they would go for the deep pass here, but defensive back Quentin Baker records the interception to hold Lamar to just 3 points heading into halftime. Running back Herschel Sims had another good week against his former team as he racked up 90 yards on 16 carries. At the beginning of the third, Lamar would pass on a 3rd and long situation, but the defense gets there in time to break up the pass. Running back DeAndre Brown also had a productive game as he rushed for 107 yards on just 13 carries in his first game back from an injury. The Wildcats were able to put together a nice drive which ended in this 65-yard pass from receiver Cade Stone to his fellow receiver Monte Green Avery for a touchdown to give the home fans something to cheer about, leading 14-10. With 10.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, McKenzie finds tight end Noah Sheshir as he makes it into the end zone to put ACU up 11, 21-10. On a Lamar 4th and 19, the defense is flagged for a personal foul, giving the Cardinals a first down at the ACU 12-yard line. The following play would result in a Lamar touchdown and a successfully converted two-point conversion, moving the score ACU 21, Lamar 18, with 7:45 left in the game. The Wildcats were forced into a 3-and-out on their following possession, while Lamar was able to go 82 yards in a minute and a half, resulting in this touchdown to give the Cardinals the lead. The missed point after would keep ACU's deficit at just 24-21, with hopes left in the game. The Wildcats would do everything they could to put together a game-winning drive, but were unable to score, giving Lamar a come-from-behind victory on the road in Shotwell.
All right, thanks, Daniel. 24-21, ACU drops a close one to Lamar. Coach, the game really began in good fashion for your team. You get another touchdown strike from Parker McKenzie to Cedric Gilbert. I went back and looked at some of your comments when you guys signed Cedric Gilbert. You said you thought he had a chance to be one of the best players that you guys have recruited in the 10 years since you've been here. Has he exceeded your expectations even this year? 7 touchdowns in 6 games?
The statistical numbers, yes. I mean, who catches 7 touchdowns in the first 6 games? That's kind of crazy. And he has a knack for catching the ball. He catches the ball really, really well in the games. It's so easy for him to do that. You hear of a gamer. Yeah. I don't really believe in gamers, but Cedric does really good in the games. He looks smooth in the game. I think he plays a little better when he's more nervous. And and so he has the ability to catch that ball, and he's 225 pounds, Grant. I mean, the guy's big, and he can run. And the fact is, he's hard to tackle. So we've got to keep keeping him in his groove. You know, we're not asking him to do things that he's uncomfortable with, and when you do that, that allows people to make big plays.
Interesting to watch how he has developed, not just on the field, but you've seen some changes in him off the field as well. He seems to be finding his groove here on campus too, a little bit. Sure.
I mean, he is maturing. All these guys, what I get to see as the head coach is what nobody else gets to see is, you know, these guys they're guys. They're just college-age guys who happen to be good football players, and it's my job to mold them into good men and good football teams. So. It is interesting, but he has definitely grown. I'm glad Cedric is here.
Yeah. You're trailing 10-7. 4th time in 6 games you've trailed at halftime. Omar Tebow, you kept telling us about him, big number 65, their nose guard. Did he look as good in person as he looked on film? He sure did look awfully good to me.
Yeah, that was the problem, is he looked really good out there on Saturday night, and he spent a little bit too much time in our backfield, and you know, he's a good player. We had a plan for him, but every now and then, you know, just the percentages dictate he's going to be in a one-on-one with somebody. And whenever we've seen him in a one-on-one situation with people, regardless of who they played, he gave them fits. And you know, he's a good player, and you know, if he stays healthy for them, they're going to do well defensively.
You guys were foundering a little bit on offense, and then you pull out what is our play of the game. And let's take a look at it here. It's the double pass. This is a play you've liked for a lot of years, isn't it?
Yes, we've run this for a long time, and it normally works. It either works for a touchdown or the guy throws it out of bounds because it's not a quarterback throwing the ball. So we knew it was going to be there. We had a really good feeling, and you know, sometimes you need a big play like that to get you going offensively.
And Cade Stone, you say it wasn't a quarterback throwing. He was a quarterback in high school.
He was.
He threw 33 touchdowns at Fort Worth Christian, so he's thrown a few.
That's right, and that's his first touchdown pass here.
Yes, it is.
He's received a touchdown, he's rushed for a touchdown, he's returned a kick for a touchdown.
And caught a pass for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Awfully good. I got to tell you this, Monte Green Avery, the ball's in the air. He's so open. You see this. Those passes, sometimes those are the hardest ones to catch.
Oh, those have to be excruciating when they're just hanging in the air. But I tell you what, Monte had he had the gear shift in 5th gear. He slipped that thing into 5th gear, and he was gone. He was running fast, and there was no catching him.
Hey, it comes down to the wire. You guys are up 21-10, and things are looking good. A critical call happened on 4th and 19 for them. They're at your 24-yard line. There was a very odd discussion that went on with the officials. They called Justin Stevens for a foul. They said initially it was a personal foul, unnecessary roughness, which was after the incompletion. Therefore, it's a post-play foul. ACU would have gotten the ball, and you would have gone back half the distance. Then they change it and say, no, it's a hit on a defenseless receiver. I'm not asking you to give us an opinion of the officiating. What I am asking you is, how big of a play was that in the game?
Well, unfortunately, it was a huge play because if if we get the ball back, our percentages of winning that game go way up.
7 or so minutes to go, up 11.
That's exactly right. We could have hit a knee and punted, and they probably don't have time to score twice. But the defenseless receiver, we made the same play earlier in the game, and it wasn't a violent hit. It was just the guy was off balance, and Justin Stevens took him out of the play to make sure he wasn't going to catch the ball. And it wasn't anything, he wasn't trying to gore the guy. I mean, Justin Stevens is the cleanest player I've ever been around in my coach. That's right. Yeah. But he plays hard. He's going to make sure that he finishes plays. We talk about finishing. So unfortunately, that was the call, and it worked against us.
Yeah, and you told me before that game, you said, I want my players on that edge between clean play and penalty, in the sense that I want them finishing plays. I want them to play with passion. Can you play with passion and discipline? Was your challenge to them.
That's right. And you always want to play to the echo of the whistle. And that's how we play here. And our defense plays hard, and sometimes it works against you.
The shame of it is Sam Denmark, your freshman linebacker, made a really good play to deflect the ball.
He sure did.
He continues to play well, and we expect big things from Sam Denmark. So ACU falls in a tough one. They dropped to 3-3 on the season, still 2-1 in the Southland Conference. When we come back on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, a chat with ACU Sports Hall of Fame member Charlie Marlar. But as we go to break, take a look at scores from last week around the Southland Conference, brought to you by University Park Apartments.
Welcome back to the Ken Collums Show. Homecoming week means a busy campus for ACU, including all the Wildcat sports. Here's Hannah Little with more.
Thanks, Shara. The volleyball team competed against the number 5 team in the conference, Northwestern State University, and the number 2 team, Stephen F. Austin, last weekend. The Wildcats lost to Northwestern State in 5 sets and Stephen F. Austin in 3 sets. The team is on the road homecoming weekend, facing Lamar University and Sam Houston State. The soccer team competed against the University of Central Arkansas last weekend. The game ended with a tie as both teams competed into 2 overtime periods. Coming up this weekend, the team is at home against Northwestern State and the number 3 team in the conference, Stephen F. Austin.
Big weekend for us, and we are in control of how we approach practice, and we can either go in 100% and get 100% out of it, or we can go in halfway and get halfway out of it, and we practice how we play. So I think that this week we're just being really intentional about fixing the kinks that we did have last weekend, so that we can come in 100% and strong to face these teams this weekend. Yeah.
Success was written across the board as all of the men and women cross-country runners set personal records last weekend at the Chili Pepper Festival. The women finished in 11th place as Diana Garcia placed 36th with the season best in the 5K. Senior Daniel Block led the men's team, placing 154 out of 430 runners. The Wildcats will travel to San Antonio this weekend to run in the Incarnate Word Invitational. Thank you for watching the JMC Network Sportscast. See you next week. I'm Hannah Little.
Homecoming week means another class is inducted into the ACU Sports Hall of Fame. Grant Boone takes a trip down memory lane with Hall of Fame member Dr. Charlie Marlar.
Thanks, Shara. What a pleasure it is to welcome the former chair of the JMC department here at ACU, Dr. Charlie Marlar, affectionately known to all of us who went through the program as Doc. But yeah. Dr. Marlar, I want you to take us back here on homecoming week. We've just come off this game against Lamar. And with all respect to Incarnate Word and Houston Baptist, whom ACU had played before that, Saturday night really felt like a Southland Conference game again. two of the founding 5 members of the Southland Conference. You were heavily involved in the process of the formation of the Southland Conference. How did that come about? Take me back to the early 1960s when those conversations were going on.
We were there at the birth. And I think what really drove it was ACC then, and some of those other schools who were having to make it independently, not playing for a championship, were in grief about not playing for a championship. It was not as much fun on the campus of being an independent. What were you playing for? So the presidents, as much as the athletic directors, drove that the formation of this group.
And you were involved in the naming of the conference. Tell us about those conversations.
Yeah, the presidents and the ADs assigned that job to the 5 sports information directors. It was my luck or lot or fate or whatever to be the chairman of that group, and so we pushed the Southland Conference because Southern was not available.
Right.
Southwest, Texas, Lone Star. What else was gone? Almost all of them were gone. That was anything to do with the South. And we didn't want it to be just Texas. We wanted it to be something that would reach outside Texas. So Southland was the name that got pushed.
And it stuck.
Yep.
And it's endured, and it's become its own brand. You're a member of the ACU Sports Hall of Fame. You went in just a few years ago, and Friday night we inducted 7 new members. You had this amazing window and still have this great window into ACU athletics. When you think about the 2 or 3 greatest moments that you've personally witnessed, give me a couple of them.
Couple of them. Well, one of them is the night that Bobby Morrow ran 9-1 on the McMurray track. Just unbelievable. And if things had been right with technology of that day, I think that would have been the world record. It was not windy, but we didn't have the scientific proof of it. That's one. I remember a basketball game at Abilene High School against Hardin Simmons, I believe, and Dr. Jim Womack, who's a world-class geneticist now at Texas A&M, drove that. Well, Coach Nutt was sick and at home, and Jim was the coach on the floor, and he drove for a bucket at the last second.
Wow. And of course, ACU's track and field history legendary.
Oh, yeah.
One of the men who went into the Hall of Fame last night, Lieutenant Colonel T.D. Smith, he was in school around the time you were.
Yes.
He's the only other ACU Olympian who went in on a sport other than track and field, pistol shooting.
Pistol shooting. Gold medal.
How about
at
that?
Tokyo.
A world record.
Yeah.
And a record that will never be broken because they've changed how they've done that pistol shooting competition.
Correct.
Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for stopping by.
You bet.
Great. Dr. Charlie Marlar. When we come back on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll take a look at today's homecoming matchup, ACU and Ave Maria University at Shotwell. Stay with us. Back here on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, take a look at today's schedule around the Southland Conference, brought to you by University Park Apartments. Coach, how about Huntsville, Texas today? McNeese State on the road at Sam Houston State.
That'll be a nice one to watch, yes.
Tell you something, both teams undefeated in the conference, and you think about what this conference has been the last few years.
Oh, these are 2 of the top teams in the league, and you know, the only thing better if they could play a 3-way with Southeastern Louisiana. But these are 2 of the top teams, and it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, should be a really good game down there in Huntsville, and ACU, of course, will play those 2 teams the next 2 weeks. Next week at McNeese, the week after at Sam Houston State. But today, happy homecoming. ACU takes on the Ave Maria University Gyrenes. So if those 2 teams you just talked about, McNeese and Sam, know each other very well, here we've got a week where we really don't know this opponent. This is only a university that goes back a decade or so. It was founded by Domino's Pizza magnate Tom Monahan, Catholic University in Southwest Florida. Tell me about trying to get ready for a team that you just frankly don't know very well.
Well, it comes down to football. It comes down to how you match up offensively, defensively, special teams, and they're going to, you know, we don't know anything about them. We know a little bit about their personnel just through, just through reading where they came from, what they've done. But ultimately, our big deal is you evaluate them on video, you figure out a game plan just like we would, just like we will next week when we go to McNeese. So our preparation, there's no difference in our preparation in this week relative to any other week. And bottom line is you better have good practices if you're going to win on Saturday, or to give yourself a chance to win on Saturday. And we've had great practices all week, so I fully expect a good homecoming show.
Good.
Coach, you mentioned earlier the running game last week slacked off a little bit in the fourth quarter. How do you plan on keeping guys like Herschel and DeAndre up through the whole game?
Well, the thing is we ran the ball well throughout the
yeah.
game, and we had some chunk runs that you need to have. When I say run the ball well, you need to run the ball effectively, and every now and then you need a chunk run, which we ripped off probably 3 or 4 chunk runs. And our inability to run the ball in the fourth quarter, really looking back on it, had nothing to do with what they did. We didn't approach some things properly. They just wasn't blocked very clean from those guys up front. But you know what? Lamar's D-line probably turned it up a notch. So it wasn't scheme. It wasn't anything scheme. It's just, you know what? I think Lamar played a little better at the end of the game.
What's really weird is that, and this goes back to what you've been talking about, playing 4 quarters of football. Your defense was terrific for 3.5 quarters. Your running game, by and large, was really good. I mean, DeAndre went for over 100 yards. Herschel went for almost 100 yards for the second straight week. But it comes down to those final few minutes. So let's flip it around defensively. Probably not a coincidence that they made some of their hay at the end of the game when Lynn Grady went out. So give me a sense as it relates to Lynn and some of the other players who got dinged up a bit last week, their status for today's game.
Sure. You know, when you're without some of your main guys, it puts a lot of pressure on other people.
And he's a main guy.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. He is the guy who, at the end of the play, Lynn Grady is around the ball. He's either getting up from the pile or he is looking for a fumble at the end of the play. I mean, he's been a very just a surprise this year, because we moved him last year from safety down, and he's played well. So that hurt. Keith Barnett not playing, it's a bummer. They were picking on our corners, and they should have. You know, everybody in this league is going to be coached well, and they're going to have a few explosive guys that they're going to count on. And we got into a couple of matchups in the game that they took advantage of, and they still had to make the play, and those guys did.
Okay, Coach, you've been here for 10 years. So how has homecoming changed, and what does it mean to you now?
Well, it's just an exciting time. Every year it rolls around, people get excited, and the game preparation is no different for us, but it's fun because there's a buzz around campus, and it's a different atmosphere. We always bring recruits in on homecoming just so they can see a nice crowd and an active crowd, and so we're fired up about it. I'm ready to fast forward a little bit into when we have our stadium on campus.
Yeah.
Homecoming will be crazy. It's going to be crazy fun. Homecoming's good anyway, and I can't imagine what it's going to be at that time.
Hey, one last thought here as we wrap things up. You were an NAIA quarterback. You played some big games when you were at Central Arkansas. You won some games against some teams that were in divisions above the division you played in at UCA. I'm just thinking, you better be on point today, right? Because this is a chance, while Ave Maria from the NAIA is not a great team, they haven't had a great season so far. They've had some close games, some close losses. But this is a year maker for them. This makes maybe the history of their football program if they were to come in here and shock the world today, right?
A win for them would be huge. And, when you're playing a team that's bigger than you, you don't look at it as, hey, we're playing a team that's bigger than us. What you focus on is your approach and your confidence. You trust your training. You trust your coaches. Everything you've gone through prepares you for that. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to get extra fired up for this one. A lot of times it works against you. You get a little too much passion going, and you'll go out and not play well. But, they'll be excited. Teams from far off, out of state, what I've figured is, they hear all this Texas football stuff. They're excited to come here, and hey, what's that about? And I know I got some of that from the Northern Arizona guys, but they'll come in, play hard, and it's our job just to make sure we do well.
All right, ACU and Ave Maria University today at 2 o'clock, homecoming. You've got the homecoming court, and they'll be presented at halftime. It's a big weekend, the musical. It started last night. It goes on throughout the weekend. The reunion dinners tonight. Hope you have a great homecoming weekend. And if you can't be here, we hope you enjoyed the broadcast of the game. We'll have it kick off 2 o'clock, the pregame show with Coach Bob Strader and me on the ACU Sports Network beginning at 1:30. For Sharon Nemorowski and for the coach Ken Collums, I'm Grant Booth. Thanks for watching the Ken Collums Show presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Enjoy homecoming and enjoy the game.